Hi, everybody. How's it going? I'm glad to see several of y'all here. So tonight is core subjects tutoring, and I've already done the other subjects recently. I haven't done fine arts in a while, so hopefully you need fine arts. If you don't need fine arts, feel free to log off and come back. Next week I will actually not have free tutoring, but the week after I will, and I'll do a different subject. So if you have a request, you can let that be known, and in 2 weeks I can do the subject you want. Um, but hopefully you need fine arts. So my name is Courtney. I passed the core subjects test a long time ago, and I've been tutoring ever since. So I wanted to show you guys some data before we get started. If you just go to Google and type in EPP passing rates 2023 or whatever, you can put 2024, but it comes up at the top for 2023 at least. Scroll down and you can see the passing rate for the different tests. This is straight from the TEA. So this is official data. This is the passing rate for first-time test takers. All right, so you can see core subjects, fine arts has an 80% pass rate. So it's pretty high, but it's not as high as language arts and reading. But it's higher than math, right? And it's higher than social studies. So that's a little bit of information. The other thing that I like to tell everybody before we get started is to just go to Google and type in Texas NESIMC manual. Click on the top link. Click on prepare. You've probably been here. This is the same website where you go to register. Scroll down and click on Core Subjects EC through 6. Click on Go. And then this will tell you a little bit about the test, the timing, things like that. So you can see it's a 5-hour test. For fine arts, it's 35 minutes with 40 questions. So super fast, right? You don't have much time per question. And they're sample questions. These questions are super similar to the questions on the real test. Now, they just recently launched these, and I haven't bought them, but I would trust these because these are from the real test company, right? Um, but if you have my course, then you don't need this. And mine would actually end up being less expensive for you because you wouldn't have to buy so many of them separately like this, right? So, but I do think that this is a good source. But let's get started on the actual tutoring. So this is straight from my course. And what sets me apart, there's lots of companies out there that all have study material. And I've bought a lot of them throughout the years before I made my own material. And a lot of them are really good. But what I've noticed is some of them are overwhelming. They have everything that's going to be on your test, but they also have a lot of stuff that's not going to be on the test. And I try hard not to do that. So I try to teach you only what you need to know on the test. Of course, there's going to be some things that aren't on your test because there's different versions of the test, right? So I'm going to get you ready for any version, but I'm not going to get you ready for the Florida test, the New York test, and the California test, like I think some of these other companies do. They get you ready for any state test. I'm just going to get you ready for the Texas ones. So there's a lot of parts to fine arts. We've got visual arts, right? Music, health, PE, and theater. So tonight we'll do visual arts. Um, there's a lot of questions about the elements of art and the principles of design. So this is a good one to do, right? So in kindergarten, students should begin learning about and applying elements of art, principles of design, and expressive qualities. They will build critical thinking skills and their imagination by examining, understanding, and creating artwork, right? In the higher grades, they learn additional elements of art and principles of design. They're still using their senses, but also prior knowledge and other reading and exploration. All right, so we have the elements of art. We need to memorize these. You have to know them. Line, a mark that connects the distance between 2 points, can be straight or curved. So it doesn't have to be a straight line to be a line. Shape, any area the artist used for his purpose, including the background, foreground, and middle ground. Color, what is made when light hits an object and reflects to the eye. It consists of hue, like red, yellow, blue, intensity, how vivid it is, and value, how light or dark it is. Texture, of course, that's how something feels or looks, like rough, grainy, smooth, etc. Form is the volume of three-dimensional artwork, length, width, and height, and its shape. Two-dimensional artwork, perspective and shading can be used to create form. Then we have space, the closed areas created by lines, including curved lines and artwork, triangles, circles, squares, etc. And value is how light or dark a color is. Right now we have principles of design, and these also come up a lot on the test. We have emphasis, making something stand out, right? Contrast, using multiple elements of design to capture the viewer's attention to certain parts of the artwork. Repetition or pattern, an artist repeats an object or symbol throughout the work of art to create unity or harmony. Movement or rhythm, a feeling of movement an artist creates by repeatedly using elements of art. Rhythm and movement in art can create a mood like happiness and dancing. So notice that some of these principles of design are created from the elements of art, right? Balance, spreading out symbols or objects throughout the work to even out the artwork. Proportion, the feeling of how sizes and amounts relate to each other. For example, an artist may portray someone with a small head, meaning in proportion to their body, his or her head is small. Unity, the sense of harmony that the artist creates in the work. So we need to plan activities that meet the needs of all types of learners. Usually I don't spend a lot of time on this because you get a lot of this in your educator preparation program, your certification program. But you need things for auditory, kinesthetic, and visual learners that learn all different ways. You always want to keep learning fun, right? Keep it student-centered. Let them do different things with their hands, right? Get a little dirty, right? So when painting, use a variety of paints, watercolors, acrylics. If you're doing sculptures, do that, and also show them how to do wood turning if you have those supplies, right? Play different kinds of music, show them how to evaluate artwork. Next, we have perception. So we know everybody has different life experiences that shape how we view the world. So if you have students from artistic homes that have gone to museums and they have a lot of artwork at home, they're going to have different background knowledge, different schema than somebody who hasn't had those opportunities, right? We want to keep that in mind and not expect everybody to know the same things. We always want to encourage students to use their imagination and use the hierarchy of questioning, which is Bloom's taxonomy, right? So let me see if this link is working because sometimes they change their link. Okay, good. So we have the lower ones are knowledge and understanding, just asking recall questions. Then it gets a little higher application and analysis where they analyze, compare, and contrast. And then synthesis and evaluation where they can create their own new things, right? Always want to create interdisciplinary units where you're connecting different subjects. So you're connecting math, science, social studies, language arts, and fine arts, right? And you can do that by working with other teachers. Activities. Okay. So we want to select activities to help them deepen and expand their ability to perceive and reflect on the environment. Take them on a nature walk and have them talk about what they see, paint or make a sculpture of a scene from the local environment, right? They can paint a scene from a sculpture or create a sculpture, I mean. Share it with peers and discuss it. We always want to talk about keeping all comments constructive, right? And positive. So uh, set the stage for that. These are the art materials. A hand loom is a tool for weaving, which is a common type of fiber art. You also have a peg loom, which is a loom with pegs to use to loop and weave bands. So you've probably seen this if you've seen little kids making pot holders, right? That's called a peg loom. A press mold is a mold used to put clay in to make pottery or some type of art that takes the shape of the mold. The mold can be used repeatedly to make the same form. A kiln is a special oven used to fire pottery. Sculpting tools are tools used to create a design in a sculpture. Modeling clay is clay students can use to make a sculpture. A palette knife is a knife used to mix colors, paint colors. A lathe chisel is a chisel used for wood turning. Scrapers, cutters, sanders, and parting tools are also used for wood turning. So sometimes they'll ask you what would be an appropriate tool for a certain activity, and you have to know that. All right. Um, as I mentioned before, we always want to plan interdisciplinary units where students are able to learn about different subjects in the same unit. So you're connecting math, science, social studies, language arts. We also want to work together with students to come up with solutions to problems, right? Where they think about that, create a work of art to reflect their ideas. For example, maybe a local beach has a lot of litter. They can organize a beach cleanup and they can maybe do some artwork depicting the before and after. Elements of art, we already did this. Anytime I repeat something in my course, it's not because I forgot that I did it. It's because they repeat it in the manual. So it's super important. It's going to come up. So, but we already just did that. So I repeat it, but we don't need to do it again now. And then the same thing with principles of design. They repeat it. So I repeat it. Instruction, plan activities that allow students to evaluate and create artwork. They should have a variety of mediums to create, including acrylic paint, watercolor, color pencils, different fiber art, sculpture, ceramics, construction, digital art, and photographic imagery. Fiber arts include textile arts like making clothes, purses, as well as tapestries, rugs, wall hangings, lace making, and flocking. Flocking is when you put small particles of fiber or flock on an art surface. And sometimes they ask questions about what those different types of art are. Drawing, we know to use pencils, crayons, color pencils, etc. Painting, acrylic, oil, pastels, watercolor, and ink paints. Printmaking is using a master plate to make multiple images. The master plate is a surface like cardboard, stone, styrofoam, or some other material that the artist creates by cutting, drawing, or etching an image onto the plate. Then the artist applies ink to the press on the plate, and the print is pulled from the plate. There are different types of printmaking. Relief printing can be done using a rubber stamp pressed onto an ink pad and then pressed on paper. Metal, wood, or linoleum can also be used to make printing plates that artists can carve into. A burin is a V-shaped tool a printmaker can use to gouge the lines of an image onto a smooth metal sheet or a piece of plexiglass. Printmaking also includes lithography, which is a flat stone or metal plate used to print. Since grease attracts grease and repels water, a design or image is drawn on the surface of a stone or metal with a greasy material, like grease, pencil, crayon, or ink. Then water and printing ink are applied, and the greasy part absorbs the ink while the wet parts repel it. So that's lithography. Construction, let them construct certain simple things like jewelry boxes, birdhouses, etc. Ceramics, they can bake it in a kiln, fire it. Fiber arts, they can use art, yarn, or fabric to make different types of fiber art, learn how to knit, crochet. And then electronic media, they can learn how to use digital sources. Honestly, I put it in my course to cover our basis, right? But I don't think any of this will come up on the test, right? And I even tell you that on my course, this is what saves you time. I don't think this will be on the test, right? So I put it on there on the safe side, but I'm not going to bore you with all of this information. It's a lot of history and culture. We want to teach them art appreciation and music appreciation. A great way to do that is to take them to different places and let them see and hear it firsthand. When that's not possible, take advantage of videos. Again, they repeat the elements of art. You can see how important this is and the principles of design, but we just did that. And we talked a lot about interdisciplinary units where you connect different subjects. They mentioned that a lot too. So you can see what the most important things we're talking about tonight are the things that are repeated. You have to know the stages of cognitive development. This comes up on every subject area of the core subjects. So math, science, social studies, all of them. The sensory motor stage is birth to 2 years, where they're putting everything in their mouth and they're learning from movement and senses. And then you have the pre-operation stage, usually from 2 to 7 years old. They're very self-centered, right? They believe in animism, where they think everything has the trait of living beings. Symbolism, that something is a symbol of something else. They're starting to understand that. And they also have what's called moral realism, where they think everybody has the same moral compass that they have. Then you have the concrete operation stage, usually 7 to 11 years old. They need a concrete item to be able to think about what they're looking at, right? So it's called concrete operations. They're starting to understand conservation. So notice the con in conservation and the con in concrete. That helps me remember that they go together. Conservation is the idea that something can look different but be the same. So for example, a tall, skinny glass of water might hold the same amount as a short, wide glass of water. And then you have the formal operation stage, usually beginning at 11, 12 years old, but some kids don't start until 16 years old, and it's the last stage. They can start to think abstractly, make a hypothesis, and think about reasons. Outcomes, hypothetic deductive reasoning. And then everything we do should be based on the TEKS, the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. So you don't need to memorize the TEKS, but it's good to read through them and see what's expected at each grade level to have an idea of that. So that was super quick. Let's look at some sample questions and then I'll see if you guys have any questions for me. So feel free to put your answer in the chat box. Which of the following is not a principle of design? See if you guys remember from the beginning. So, okay, we do have an answer. A. So let's see. So the correct answer is C. So I want to show you what happens if you, it's okay if we miss. I mean, we went over that only one time. You could see in the course it's listed 3 times to really give you that repetition, right? So C is correct. Principles of design are how the artist use the elements of art. Texture is not an element. Texture is an element of art, so it is not a principle of design. Contrast, balance, and proportion are all principles of design. Let's do one more. What is a kiln? So we did talk about that one. Hopefully you remember that. So a kiln is a special oven. Good. Let's see if that's what you guys got. Yes, a special oven used to fire pottery. So, um, if you probably already have a study guide or a course or something like that. And if you like it, that's great. I always say stick with what's working for you. But if you feel like what you have is not working, or maybe you don't have something yet, and you like how my course is set up, it has questions for each competency. It's got a full length test at the end. It's got videos for each section. In fact, I can show you a little bit more real quick. So at the beginning of each competency, there's a video to watch that explains all of the content. Then there's a quiz for each competency, and then there's a final test at the end. Right? So you get the equivalent of 2 full-length tests because the quizzes add up to 1 full-length test and then the final test. So I think you'll really like it. I've had good feedback from people that have struggled with using other study materials because, like I said, some of them are just overwhelming. Um, and then
I have a question.
let's go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I'm sorry. You can go ahead. I'm so sorry.
No, no, please go ahead.
Okay. How can I'm able to use the resource that you're speaking of?
Yeah, so if you just go to that link that I just put in the chat box, and click on
Okay.
it, I'll show you. So it goes to this link, and then you just select what you need. Like maybe you need all subjects, so you would click on that. But if you only need one subject, you can save money and just buy the subject you need. And then after you click on it, just click on if you want to pay for 1 month at a time and it's renews, or if you want to pay $80 and get it for 3 months. It's up to you. So it saves you a little bit of money if you're going to study for longer, right? But if you're only studying for 1 month,
Yes.
then do that. And I make it super easy to cancel. You just go in and click on your account billing. You don't have to email me. You don't have to wait so many days. You don't have to click a million things, or you can just text me at this number to cancel your subscription and I'll cancel. Some people cancel the same day they sign up because they don't want to risk getting billed again. They still have access for the whole month. Um, so, any other questions or comments or anything?
No. Where's the number again? I don't
Then
see it.
it's in the chat box. Hopefully,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
that's my cell phone number. So if you want to cancel your subscription, or maybe there's something you think of that you didn't ask me about today, um, and I usually do this every week, but next week I have something else that I'm doing that's a big master class for another test. So I'm going to take off next week from core subjects. But I have lots of videos on YouTube too that you can check out. Um, and then, like I said, make sure you look at those free Texas NESI manual questions because those are super similar to the questions on the real test.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And another thing you can do is just Google release star tests. And if you take the release star tests, which are the tests that the kids take, you probably know that. They've taken third grade all the way up through high school, right? In high school, they call them end of course exams, but they're still star tests. Um, those questions are a good way to check your understanding. They're not exactly the same as the test questions on your test, but they're similar because they're over the same content. So it's a good way for you to see, do I remember all my Texas history or do I need to go back and review my course again? So I put that link in there too. Any other questions or comments or anything? No? Well, I thank you guys so much. I love what I do. And the free tutoring is always super short because I have some word paid tutoring later tonight. So I stay pretty busy. But thank you so much. I hope you'll have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.